So, we've talked about how macro trends combine to create a situation where talent behaves in a very similar way to consumers of our product and service offer. We've also talked about the difference perhaps, or we've thought about the difference between the way we engage with product and service consumers within our organisations and perhaps the way we engage with talent either inside our organisation or yet to be in our organisation. And I just want to pull out some key differences that I've come across through my research and experience that are good examples of that difference. One is we often assume deep down in the fundamental bedrock of our talent processes that people are going to be in our organisations longer than they probably are. If they're that good, if they're that saleable, and the relationship with an employer is more discretionary than it has been in the past, surely it's dangerous or risky to assume that they will be with us for 10 to 15 years. And this is very much the kind of career model that lurks just under the surface in some of our organisations, not all of them, but in some of them. And it's exemplified by things like succession planning, where more often than not there'll be some category in terms of readiness, which is 3 to 5 years, or it might say 5 years or more. The question I would ask is, what's the point of that? Do we even know that that talent's going to be around in 5 years? And if we knew that that talent was likely to move on, not because of an issue with us, but just because they're managing their career in a different way, would we construct the way that we worked with them differently as a result? And I think this is key, that we do tend to have a difference in the way that we look at careers in HR than we look at careers as talent. And we are also talent. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's very few people I meet who have valuable skills who are thinking about a one-company career. They are starting or some way through their career with the full intention of working in a number of different areas. They might even have a rough plan. They are thinking of developing their skill set, not within one organisation, but across several. So why aren't we thinking about career development in the same way? If it's going to happen anyway, I mean, great, we can keep that relationship going as long as we can. But there comes a point where perhaps even it becomes non-economic for us to try to artificially keep that relationship going, where perhaps the best thing to do is to just recognise that the individual would benefit more from moving to another organisation, but actually longer term, we might benefit more as well, because maybe they'll come back, and they'll come back with a set of experiences they couldn't have got in our organisation as economically. We also make life hard for ourselves in terms of things like pay ranges. If I keep coming back to this digital example, I apologise, but it really is one where I think we are going to catch a cold. What happens when we are trying to recruit some digital marketeers to deliver a critical plank of our strategy? And you can see the conversation happening in HR functions around the world. This is how much money they want, but that's outside of our pay band for that grade. What are we going to do? We're just going to let them go? Well, maybe we are. Or maybe we're going to bend that range. That's potentially going to cause some issues within our organisation. Different, newer people coming in on different terms and conditions, perhaps. It's not something that we can just write off as easy to deal with. I talked to an HR leader in the oil and gas industry recently. And they were saying, yeah, we offer graduates about twice the going rate to come and join our organisation in these particular skills areas. Oh, I said, why do you do that? He said, well, for two reasons. The first one is, we can. And the second reason is, competition can't. And although that sounds very harsh, actually it's good economic thinking. It's making hay while the sun shines, because what they recognise is they can give talent what it wants, and they can use that to create competitive advantage over people who cannot. How flexible are our management approaches? As we see individuals wanting much more of an individual consumer-led approach to career management, performance management, dialogue with managers, and interaction with an organisation. How flexible are we in the way that we manage people? How flexible are we in, for example, whether they're in the office versus a location-independent means of working? How flexible are we in terms of being able to talk to them and understand what they want and be able to link that with what the company can provide? It's an interesting question. How flexible is flexible working? In many organisations, not terribly, actually. And again, this is going to become more and more challenged with a consumer who knows what they want and isn't afraid to ask for it. And if we look at how we do begin to understand and raise information and insights about our employees, you could be perhaps forgiven for thinking that they're more mass market approaches in terms of some of the engagement surveys that we do. How flexible or how much those allow us to get under the skin of what individuals want rather than large groups of individuals? Are we in danger of creating lowest common denominator approaches when actually the real value with a consumer, yes, there has to be an element of mass market just from simple economics, but often the sell or the value is created at really an individual level. It could be a manager and an employee. How do you bridge that gap? How do you move from just a mass market engagement approach to something which is more tailored and individual? I think that's a challenge. And it raises some interesting questions about line manager capability. And also our tentative approach to social media. There's a bit of Pandora's boxism, I always think, in this respect. Be under no illusions. The longer that we in HR dip our toe in the water, decide it's rather too cold for a swim, and go back and sit on our towel, the more that market is becoming intermediated by people who do know what they're doing and are not afraid to do it. And there is a scenario on the horizon where we will have to pay some of those providers to talk to talent in the future. So the longer that we vacillate around our approach to social media, which requires resources and requires skills and requires commitment, the more we allow that situation to develop. It's happened in other industries. It's happened in the travel and leisure sector, for example. It is happening right now in the talent sector. So here's the question. With our current approaches to talent, how well do they really engage with the needs of talent if we extrapolate these trends? They've been successful. They're still being successful to a degree. But more and more now we're seeing some of the gaps. And if we project this forwards, I think it's a valid question. How well are they going to engage with the needs of talent consumers or career consumers in the future? Do we have meaningful dialogues with our talent? Or do we deal with them through a mass market process? How good are our managers at that individual relationship within a broader employee offer? Are we able to strike the right balance between something which is a one-size-fits-all and something which is individually tailored? We obviously have concerns about creating a multiplicity of different benefit scenarios. Sure, in a large organisation that's a problem. But at the same time, we have to strike that imbalance with the ability for a one-size-fits-all to miss so many of the opportunities that we need to engage with talent. And are we developing aligned propositions? What do I mean by that? I mean, are we looking at how reward, development, recruitment, line management, performance, all these HR process areas, policies, are we looking at their suitability and their relevance to this new talent scenario? And are we aligning them so that they don't pull in different directions, so they create a powerful product and service offer that can be our offer, our part of the deal to this consumer? These, I think, are very interesting questions for us to consider in HR. So, what is all this saying? We look at the trends. The trends are describing a space where talent is able to and is behaving more and more as a career consumer. We look at the organisational response to this and we see that perhaps it's a little patchy and perhaps it's a little misaligned or perhaps outmoded based on some assumptions which perhaps don't talk to this new situation. What is the shift that is required? Well, inevitably it's going to move us away from some of the harder tools that we had around pay and rations, around career architecture and trapping people almost in a career, to actually those elements which talk much more to a more discretionary relationship between an employer and an employee, engaging them in what the organisation does, what it can offer them, and how what they have can be valued and contribute towards that. It's talking about really having a proper employee value proposition in the same way that we have a product and service offer proposition to the consumers who buy what our organisations make. And this has to be more than just a logo, more than just a tone of voice in an advert. It's really it's a go-to-market strategy specifically designed to understand and respond to the needs of the consumers that we require to deliver our strategy. We need to refocus and redouble our efforts on line managers because line managers have always been the smart play within organisations, but also the play that's been most underinvested. I think it's still true to say that in many organisations, the only fundamental element of your job that you're allowed to be bad at is managing people. In this future, it becomes really, really vital that our line managers are able to engage individuals, that our line managers are able to have proper career dialogue with their employees, their direct reports, that they're able to sell the organisation, that they're able to listen and respond to and know the individuals who work for them, not just give lip service to it. And this has to be surrounded by insight, by information that helps us understand what the external market in terms of talent wants, where it's going, how we compare against other organisations, but then internally to be continually understanding how our employees feel about working here, their needs, whether those needs are being satisfied, and to take that right down again to an individual conversation between a line manager and employee around what motivates individuals, what an employee wants in terms of their career, and a good understanding of what that means in a particular organisation. That is what I really wanted to talk to you about today, is to open your eyes and get you thinking about a challenge to the underlying philosophies in terms of how you manage talent, based around some well-researched and some observable trends, which if we look at them all together, is raising some questions perhaps we don't want to think about. So what am I proposing? I'm not proposing continuing what we do. I'm not proposing just trying harder. I'm saying we are going to have to fundamentally unpack and repack some of our talent models and our approach to managing talent. That's going to feel like a big job, but actually it's something we have to do anyway because this is already happening. Thank you very much.